Well, thank you everyone for coming out to the High Ground podcast. I'm super stoked because I Megan, it's your first time on here, and I'm a huge fan of your content. Like ever since it first started popping up, I'm just like, oh man, like this girl is like, I don't know. You say a lot of smart things that just are awesome and just really thoughtful, right? And so I really appreciate that. Josh, you've been on before, but Mace.ah.windu just always in all your content is gold.
Appreciate that, man.
And especially God, one of your recent ones, which was um, what was it? Was it Anakin and Padme in the car? I was just laughing like I was dying.
Yeah, I was just I just left my dentist appointment and they told me I had no cavities. So I was like, I'll make a TikTok. I'm in a good mood. Might as well. Yeah. I hadn't been in 2 years, so I was like, I was bracing for the worst. So, but yeah, it was pretty funny.
And then we got Carlos SithLordCJ, just always pumping out awesome facts and like, you're the man. So, yeah, thank you guys for joining me. We're gonna be jumping into A New Hope. This is the one that started it all, and it's of all the Star Wars movies, it is a complete movie in and of itself. Obviously, they didn't know if they're going to be making more or not, but that's it sprung all of this stuff, right? Um, there's people who make careers out of just talking about Star Wars. It's crazy. So I want to start out by kind of going around and getting to know everyone, having you introduce yourself. Um, Basically, I go in a circle, and so Josh, you're going to be first, CJ, you're second, Megan, you're third, and so you always go after the same person each time. I just start with a different person each time. That being said, we're going to start with Josh and say, hey, who are you? How'd you get in Star Wars? Who's your favorite character from this original trilogy, and why?
Awesome, cool. Well, hi everybody. I'm Josh. I guess on TikTok more commonly known as Mace.ah.windu. It's a pleasure to be here again. I did tell the story of how I got into Star Wars in the last podcast episode I was in, but the quick story was I went to a local library. My mom didn't let me play video games as a kid, so she was like, "Well, you can get movies from the library, so pick one you want." And all of them were really old. One of them was the original Star Wars. Actually, that's very fitting. One of them was the original Star Wars. I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. Went home, watched it, instantly hooked, wanted all the merchandise, had no idea what I was doing, but it was very, very, a very cute story. And then ever since it's been at the forefront of my hobbies. And it's kind of fluctuated my I've been interested in Transformers and football and a whole bunch of different stuff, but Star Wars was always kind of up there as one of those things that I've always been passionate about. And as I get older, I've found new love for it. So I can kind of thank the sequels for that, reviving my interest in Star Wars a little bit. So yeah, that's about me. I guess my favorite original trilogy character. I've never heard a question that specific before. People always ask me what my favorite Star Wars character is, and I always say, oh, it's one of these guys. But I guess Luke Skywalker. Yeah, Luke Skywalker is probably my favorite. I think he is us, if that makes sense. I think he is the guy that, and I'm sure we'll get more into it later, but he is the guy that we kind of see ourselves in. He's this guy who looks at this big galaxy that he finally gets to explore. And he's the special kid. He doesn't realize it yet. And I can kind of, not to get sappy, I think a lot of us can kind of see ourselves in that. So yeah, he's always been a great guy to support and be admired and admire. So yeah.
Awesome, nice. And CJ, same question. I know one of the very first things I found out was that this was toggles between your first and second favorite Star Wars film. So I was like, yes, when I do this one, definitely getting CJ on. Your thoughts?
So I already stated like how I got into Star Wars, but I'll give you a quick summary. I grew up with Marvel and DC. Like I loved all that stuff. I like watching the TV shows, read some of the comics and all that. It was actually Clone Wars which got me started. But I was as again, I wasn't really that interested in Star Wars. I just watched the Clone Wars. But when the Force Awakens came out, it got me interested. Like I just wanted to know everything about Star Wars. I was so interested in like this new universe that I really never dove into. So yeah, the Force Awakens really opened my eyes into the Force Awakens really opened my eyes into a new brand universe that I never really dove into. But yeah,
There was an
that's
awakening.
yeah. Sorry, my phone.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's all good. Okay. My favorite OT character. I'm gonna have to say Darth Vader. Darth Vader. Um, like reading, not only reading, but like watching the movies before, the prequels. You get to learn like how he became this, more machine than man, and we'll go over that in
No.
depth more. But you know, it's cool to see how Anakin transformed into this machine, and how he goes throughout the whole trilogy. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Awesome. Wow, love it. And Megan?
So yeah, I'm Megan. On TikTok, I'm Jstoobs. Yeah, I love movies. I studied like art and animation in college, so I've got that background. But the way I got into Star Wars was, I think it's pretty typical for people my age. My dad was like the biggest Star Wars fan in the world. He was a kid when they came out. So yeah, like it's he showed me the movies when I was super young. We actually used to do this bit where he would like have me stand on a chair. He'd like put his hand on my throat and we'd do the opening sequence where so yeah, that was my dad's a goofball, so it was a good time. And then as I got older, I mean, what's not to love? You get introduced to him as a super young kid, and it was awesome. I'm old enough to where like the prequels came out when I was a kid, and I still am like OT is I'm all about that. But it was fun seeing the prequels when they came out. And then yeah, you're gonna see it coming, but my favorite character is Leia, 100%. Like she was like my everything when I was a kid. Yeah, I don't think I'd ever seen a character that was just so ballsy. That opening scene where she's like death marched in to Tarkin and she's just like, yeah, you smell terrible. And like, yeah, we worship Leia, so.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, and then of course everyone knows me just watching a VHS tape of A New Hope, of Empire Strikes Back over and over and over again till it physically broke. And
Dedication,
then
man.
yeah, dedication or lack of access to other things.
Right.
I don't know, but I don't blame it. It was a blessing because got me into this awesome world, and like now I'm talking to awesome people like you guys, so I'm stoked. And the original trilogy, I am torn. I've always been torn because, um, and it's between Luke and Vader. Um, so I don't know. It's gonna sound sad. It's not meant to sound sad, but as a kid, when we'd play Star Wars on the playground, I was never allowed to be Luke Skywalker, um, for
Mm,
obvious reasons. But so they tell me, hey, you can be Lando or you can be Chewbacca,
I
and then
see.
I'd be like, screw you guys, I'm Vader, and and so
Yeah.
I grew up I just being Vader. That was just me, but um as
I'm
much as
sorry
I
you had to get forced into that. Yeah, that's
it's
it's
not
all
meant to
too common. It's more common than people realize, unfortunately.
it's not meant to be sad, but
Yeah.
it is true. Um
Yeah.
but yeah, so for me though, I want to picture myself as like a badass like Vader, but I'm definitely more like Luke. That's just my
Solid.
personality. I can't change it. Um, but yeah, jumping in, further, right? Like this single movie started. I mean, I believe this is the first blockbuster. I mean, it's either between this and Jaws of starting this whole thing. Like, how did Star Wars really change the game movie wise, and what makes this like so special? I'll start with CJ.
Um, this movie, like, I as again, I wasn't born around that time, but this movie like introduced this universe that no one really have seen before. Like everyone, I bet everyone was like weirded out by talking droids, weird aliens, like you know, a person wearing a whole dark suit with a red glowing sword and all that. It's like they're like they're just like um they're just like sorry, I'm trying to find the best word. They're like surprised by all of this.
Oh,
They're like in awe, like seeing all of this happening at the when they're watching this movie. So yeah, this movie really like brought a lot of new fans. It it brought a whole world that no one really ever thought of. This movie, as again, is the beginning of everything, and it changed everything. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'm super excited to hear Megan's thoughts because I know just from your content, I was like, all right, this girl, she knows film and she knows writing. So yeah, your
Um,
thoughts on it?
yeah, I mean, Star Wars was definitely game changing is really the only word to describe it. Like, I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. Like, sci-fi is, I think, the best and most inventive genre for storytelling. And Star Wars didn't invent sci-fi, but it really kind of perfected it for the film medium. We'd had like 2001: A Space Odyssey, we'd had Planet of the Apes. Those are kind of like more highbrow, niche kind of things. They were never really marketed to be like mass appeal. And then Star Wars came out of nowhere. Like George Lucas, low-key, like was a genius because he was like, oh yeah, no, I'll bet all of this on myself. And he got like all of the merchandising rights because nobody thought that it was going to be a success, and that's why he's a billionaire now. But yeah, I mean, Star Wars paved the way, fully paved the way for like all of the sci-fi classics that we love now. I mean, all the way through. So I'm forever grateful for that. No matter how much I criticize his dialogue.
Hmm.
He's a visionary, but visionaries, you can't
Yeah.
do everything. You know what I mean? Like,
That's true. That's true.
Josh, your thoughts on it?
Well, to piggyback off of Megan, yeah, the dude was a hell of a visionary, and a genius for creating Star Wars. I think he will always deserve that George Washington status of being the guy. And no amount of bad dialogue that he could ever write will take that away from him. Now that I've given him that, yeah, Star Wars: A New Hope is probably, well, it was his first Star Wars directed movie, and it's coincidentally his best, in my opinion. And that's something. This is coming from somebody whose favorite movie is Revenge of the Sith. I think the dialogue in Star Wars was simple enough. I think it was innocent enough, but I also think I think it was perfect for somebody like George Lucas to kind of jump right in and kind of do his thing. I think it was a perfect storm. I don't think he could have began the entire saga with The Phantom Menace or The Force Awakens or something like that. He had to begin it with this trilogy, and I think it worked out amazingly well. And he was insanely lucky. I think he was incredibly smart to get the merchandising rights because he wouldn't be nowhere near as rich if he hadn't. Maybe he saw something in it. Maybe he kind of just did it to cover his ass. Who knows? But yeah, A New Hope is probably has consistently been one of my top 4 favorite Star Wars movies of all time. It's always I always say this, it's one of the only Star Wars movies that I can watch at any point in time.
Okay.
I can watch Empire Strikes Back if I'm in the mood to watch like a truly great Star Wars film. I can watch Revenge of the Sith if I want to watch all the emotions and insane combat and all this other stuff. I can watch The Force Awakens if I want to feel excited again, like when I did when I first saw The Force Awakens in theaters, because it's the first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters. I can watch A New Hope at any point of the day. Like I can always watch it and get thorough enjoyment out of it. So it's my safe Star Wars movie. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's uh, and you hit the nail on the head, right? Because he was lightning in a bottle.
Hmm.
it couldn't have come at any other time. And just everything that they got right, they nailed. I don't know if you guys have read. They actually made a comic called The Star Wars, and it's a comic based off of George Lucas's original screenplay that he had pitched, and it is weird.
I think I've heard of it. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's weird. So it's based off his original screenplay, and the artwork is off of the original Ralph McQuarrie drawings.
Oh wow.
And so like Han Solo is a green alien. Chewbacca looks like
Star Killer?
the Lasats now. Sorry, go ahead.
We have Luke Starkiller. That was his original name, right?
Yes, it was Luke Starkiller, and yeah, it was. It's wild. I highly recommend checking it out if you want to be confused. But again, George Lucas was a huge studier of history, and then he went and studied lore and coming of age stories and mythologies from all over the world. Built this entire enormous story and started in the middle, which just genius because it means that he already had plans and plots for the entire world. And we'll get into it, but like when he casually tosses in the Clone Wars here in A New Hope, and you're like, the hell is that? Like, I want to. You won't find out for another 20 years, but it's in his mind. You know what I mean? And I even found 1982 interviews with Mark Hamill where he's like, yeah, George Lucas called me up and said, hey, you want to come back for more movies in 2012? And he said, yeah, Luke Skywalker, he's either going to be a different character or on a different plane of existence, but he'll be passing the torch to the next generation. And like crazy stuff. And you're like, so he said that in 1982, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, we'll jump into the film. I want to start with the first act of the film, right? Because we have the opening crawl, which no one's ever seen an opening crawl. This is 1977. That doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like they actually had to type the words out and have them on rollers and like spin them across a screen. But yeah, from the opening crawl all the way until they arrive to see Alderaan destroyed. Yeah, I'm curious, Yuri, what jumps out at you guys, what your favorite parts are, and I'll start with Megan on this one.
So the opening crawl, I'm just trying to look it up right now because I forgot to look it up earlier. But yeah, if I remember correctly, the opening crawl is actually really interesting because George Lucas took a huge risk with that because the Actors Guild of Hollywood, they have very specific, and it's changed recently, and there's some differences, and it's been forever since I've had my film classes, so I'm just pulling this out of stuff. It might not be 100% factually correct, but if I'm remembering correctly, the Actors Guild requires, that's why you used to see like intros for old movies, like all those Buena Vista Disney films that have like the 5-minute long intros with all the names of the actors. That used to be a requirement for studios to do that. The Actors Guild, they needed their names first, but George Lucas didn't want to do that. So he got into a lot of trouble. Because he was like, no, it's going to take people, they're going to not allow them to suspend their disbelief, which was a huge risk on top of all the other risks that he was taking. He also invested like tons of his own money in the film. But no, I think the opening of the movie just really shows how great of a storyteller George Lucas is, because as you guys were talking about earlier, he really does know how to build a story. I firmly believe that if someone else had actually written the scripts with George Lucas for the prequels, that they might have been like epic. But in A New Hope, you just go right into the action. Again, Leia, that scene that I discussed earlier, it's one of my favorite exchanges, probably in film. Wow. And then I've also got to give a shout out to my boy Luke. I love Luke as a character. He's probably my second favorite, not just of the original trilogy, but of all of the Star Wars movies. He's so compassionate. Like seriously, I spoke about it a little bit today on my page, but I think he's the purest of heart Jedi that we see. People talk a lot about Qui-Gon and even Obi-Wan, but I think that they were both kind of tainted by what had happened to the Jedi by that point, and Luke is like the one that comes in and he's truly compassionate. Like he
No
gets
baggage.
exactly,
Yeah.
and he's just like even to Beru and Owen, like all he wants is to go and have adventures and be in the Resistance, but he's like 19 and he's still like, okay, Uncle Owen, if you're saying you need me to stay on the farm to help, I will, I guess. And then Obi-Wan shows up and he's like, do you want to come on this adventure with me? And he's like, I would, but my Uncle Owen is going to kill me if I say yes. So I think he's so pure of heart and he's great and he gets a lot of crap, but I love him. It is really funny though to make fun of the Tashi Station power converters bit. I that will always be funny.
So whiny. So whiny. And that's why we love him. That's exactly why.
Yeah, it was a conscious decision.
Yeah. And relatable. That's why, as Mace was saying earlier, we're or Josh, I don't know.
You can call me whatever you want. It's totally fine.
Yeah. He's relatable. Like everybody's been that guy that's like, Mom, I don't want to do the dishes. I was about to go do this thing. It's
Yeah.
We're all Luke.
Yeah. I don't know if it's my turn or not, but I wanted to add something to her. Oh, it is? Oh, okay, even better. I think I heard somebody saying this a long time ago, and they said it might have been an article, it might have been somebody saying it on a YouTube page. Whoever, if you're watching the dude who made the YouTube video, I don't know your name, I'm sorry, but you made a really good point. Just know that. He said that Luke Skywalker, in a lot of ways, why was he so liked? Why was he such a good Jedi, at least like a good concept for a Jedi after the fall of the Jedi Order? Well, he was kind of in a way the hard reset for the Jedi Order. It was kind of like, yeah, like you said, Brandon, no baggage. There was no lack of understanding, in the sense of you look at what you're saying, you look at this age-old institution where they interpret the Force and how to serve the Force in certain ways, and they kind of lost that how-to in terms of how the Force works. And Luke's kind of learning it from the very beginning from an outsider's perspective and going, oh wow, this is really cool, wonder what that means. And so instead of saying, oh, I know what I'm talking about because I'm a Jedi, he's like, I need to learn more, I need to look at all of this other stuff, I have no idea what I'm looking at, so let me learn about it as best I can. So yeah, in a way he's like a hard reset of the Jedi Order, which I really like that description of him. Act 1, up until Alderaan gets destroyed, pick a scene.
Yeah, until they arrive and see Alderaan.
So they arrive and see it all blown up. So okay, so I guess a scene that has always stood out to me was Luke Skywalker in the classic Twin Sons scene where they play the Force theme for the very first time. Yeah, hey, nice, bro. It's always one of the most moving scenes, moments, if you will, in Star Wars history. I love, like, whenever I get to that song in my iPhone and I'm walking around, like I could be walking down the street and I hear that song, it's like all of a sudden you're the main character in your life and you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. But yeah, that's the scene that's always stood out to me. Another scene that's always stood out to me has got to be when Obi-Wan and Han Solo are talking about that sense of dread when they realize that Alderaan got blown up and they see the Death Star. For whatever reason, it's not meant to be like this super big moment, but it's always like an moment where it's like, oh my God, even the heroes are out of their league right now. They show up, they're chasing a TIE fighter, and Han Solo's like, I can take this guy. Like we're gonna shoot him down. And then Obi-Wan's like, why is he out here by himself? Why is Alderaan not here? What's that big moon there? And then they're just like, oh my God. And it's like, oh, it's getting real. Like I remember I watched it as a kid and I was like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? I don't know. It's crazy. That's always been a scene that stood out to me.
Yeah. God, I love it so much. And just like that scene of like, yeah, we've come out of hyperspace into this asteroid belt. This aren't the charts. Like, what's going on? Like, yeah, it's rough. CJ, your thoughts on it?
It's about acts, right? The first act.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it has to do. I think for me, the scene that really stood out was when Darth Vader was force choking someone. Like this is one of the first times we ever seen the force being used, like because when Obi-Wan was explaining to Luke how the force worked, we didn't know, the audience, we're still like, how come, how does it work? Like, yeah, we get the concept, but like, how does it work? Using it, right? And then we then go to Darth Vader, and then we see Darth Vader using the Force, and then you're like, that's cool. Like, it's like you finally see, it's one of the first scenes it's one of the first things we see, someone using the Force, and I just think that's really cool, and that the audience were probably surprised at that time, just like seeing like the Force being so powerful that you're able to grasp someone's throat. And yeah. That scene really stood out to me.
Yeah, there's just like a bunch of these little scenes of I mean, like you said, Megan, where it's just excellent storytelling, where you're able to tell the story in the correct order and do it by showing and not by telling. We don't know what the Force is as the audience, but we get to see this ginormous imposing figure. The first time he chokes him with his hand, not with the Force. We haven't been introduced to the Force yet. And then seeing how it progresses, and then obviously we know that this guy is leading these people, but then when it gets to that room and that one officer is mouthing off to him, you're like, okay, yeah, this guy's gonna have a bad day. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. He kind of just starts pacing, and you're like, oh God, here it comes.
You can see on everyone else's faces too. Like they're like, this idiot is about to.
Yeah. When he starts choking him, everybody's kind of just like, oh God. Yeah. And you would think, what's his name? Mahdi, the guy who gets choked, Admiral Mahdi, I think his name. Yeah, you would think that working alongside him for however long, maybe it was the first time he ever really worked with him. Maybe he only heard about him. Maybe he was like every other Imperial officer in the history of mankind that hasn't ever really dealt with Vader before. And they were just skeptical of the Force in general. And he was just like, oh, please, man, get out of my face. But like, there's a reason he's in the room with you guys. And it's not because he is politically savvy. And so watching him, and the dude sold it really well. It really looked like somebody was taking an invisible hand and choking him.
He started turning red and all this stuff. Like,
yeah, he was like, he like moved his throat. I was like, dang, man, good job.
Yeah.
Good actor for his little of a role he had.
Yeah, all of them were so great. I mean, all the small parts were done so well. George Lucas got really lucky with this casting.
Yeah, really,
especially because imagine being cast for that. You don't know what this is. Nothing like this has ever existed. You know what I mean? So yeah, you don't know that's going to be a success or anything. You could be playing a stormtrooper. You don't know how stormtroopers run or what they do or whatever. I don't know. It's just crazy to me. I have a quick lightning round for everybody.
Oh, lightning round. Nice.
Yeah. But this is really important because I will judge you personally.
Oh, okay.
I won't say anything out loud, but and I'll start with Josh. Who shot first?
Oh my God. That's low-hanging fruit, Darth Chaco. Come on, bro. Canonically, that's even scarier of a question because
it keeps changing, and like
I've always been, and I think Solo helped solidify my thought about this. And we've all seen Solo, correct? We've all seen Solo. Yeah. Okay. I think that Han shot first, or I like to think that Han shot first. And I think Solo helped fortify my belief that he shot first, because Beckett throughout the entire movie is teaching him like, dude, like, you better keep your head up in these types of situations. He doesn't actually tell him this, but like through his actions, he's like, bro, like this is a dog eat dog world. If you're not prepared to take somebody out, that's you. And Han Solo kind of uses that, and he shoots Beckett before Beckett is clearly about to shoot him. Yeah. And so it's kind of like that hair trigger moment. And I think that's a good in-universe explanation as to why I believe that that Han Solo ended up shooting Greedo first. Maybe Greedo had every intention on absolutely killing him, and so when he's getting ready to, Han's like, the real life version is just because I think the redone version looks so stupid. It's you see the head move, and I was like, oh my god, dude. George, baby, come on.
Us from Sacramento have a term it's hella jank.
Oh,
that's hella jank, bro. CJ, who shot first?
Definitely Han Solo. I always believed Han Solo shot first. Funny, I was actually watching, the edits from like, 19, from the older films and all that, and just watching his head like twitch a little, It's just so funny to watch.
Why?
But yeah, I believe Han Solo shot first, like, and it makes his character better too. Like at first he was just a cold killer. Like that was who he is, and like think of him as an anti-hero, I guess you can say. But then throughout the trilogy, the original trilogy, he really redeemed himself and became, a hero at the end of Return of the Jedi. But that's what I have to say about it.
Awesome. All right. And then bring us home, Megan.
Yeah. I mean, on 1,000% shot first. I don't even get me started on my beef with George Lucas for these digital remasters. When I was a teenager, I was just randomly at like a DVD sale, and they had some Star Wars editions. Thank God I bought them. I didn't even know at the time how valuable they would be to me. Because now I have to like put a DVD in somewhere, which I still, am I going to chew him out if I ever meet him? But yeah. Han he's a smuggler. He's like a cold-hearted criminal on Tatooine. Like the Hutts are nobody to mess around with. Like, of course he's gonna shoot first. He knows what's gonna happen to him, and Greedo's got no sympathy for Han. Greedo's in it for a paycheck. He doesn't care, dead or alive. That's how bounties work, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, Han shot first, and he's not sorry about it either. So
yeah,
he
gives off he honestly gives off I shot first energy throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like there's no way, like if you didn't know, like if you didn't watch that scene and then you went back and you said, in this situation, guys, who's gonna shoot who? It's like, oh, Han's definitely gonna cap him like immediately as soon as
I mean, have you seen Han talk to Leia? He's gonna shoot a shot first.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, don't matter what we're talking.
In every sense of the word.
Yeah, we just finished watching Han talk to Chewie about how great it was to rip these two idiots off.
Right.
And he's gonna get taken in by Greedo because he's not gonna come on. No.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat, and I always have to laugh about it because it not only did it change, but it keeps changing. I don't know if you know how many times it's changed. It's changed like 8 times. Of like, no, Greedo clearly shot first. No, it's a little bit closer. No, it's the exact same time. No, now it's this. And Star Wars, what is it? The Hall of Records for like influential movies. I can't remember which one. Star Wars is not part of it. You know why it's not part of it? George Lucas won't give them the original cut. Yeah. He won't give them the theatrical release.
He'll give it to him on his deathbed. He'll be like, "Fine, guys, here."
So.
When Disney acquired Star Wars, that part of the deal would be like they want the money. I mean, imagine how much money they would make if they release like a limited edition, a high-res Blu-ray of like the original theatrical release. They would make so much money. So clearly,
they have the ability to just print money if they want. That being said, I don't hate all the changes. There's quite a few changes that I enjoy. It's not as much in this movie, mostly in Empire. You get a lot more depth for Cloud City and all this stuff. But original version, Han shot only. Greedo didn't shoot at all.
Yep.
Greedo just died. And it was awesome because
Greedo
Han was like, he was like touching the wall, like distracting him and all this stuff.
Greedo talk way too much.
Yeah. Yes, I'll bet you have.
But awesome. Yeah, there's just so much, and once again, just how rich they made this world, and how we go into this bar, there's all these crazy aliens, and like and then they don't allow droids in the bar, and then we end up finding out, oh, droids murdered millions of people in this galaxy like 10 years ago, so it kind of makes sense. Yeah, there's so much like depth and stuff in it that it's just insane. But also, Alderaan got destroyed. Now, we'd never seen Alderaan, we didn't know much about it, but we did find out that that's Leia's planet. And they're trying to interrogate her to find the rebel base. But it also brings up a bunch of like deep, I don't know, moral implications, right? Especially if you're in the United States, if we dropped atomic bombs, was that right? Was that wrong? Was what they did wrong? Did they think it was right because they're stopping a rebellion that might claim more lives? I don't know, but it shows that this has layers, and this film, you could be 7 years old watching it, and it's a straightforward black and white good against evil film. And as you get older, you keep seeing there's layers and layers and layers, and that's the beauty of it. But yeah, all right, we'll jump forward, right? So they're chasing the Star Destroyer. They're chasing this TIE fighter. Oh, he's heading towards that small moon. That's no moon. Yeah, Act 2. They get pulled on the Death Star, and we'll talk that through them leaving the Death Star. And see what your guys' thoughts are. And I'll start with CJ.
I think I have to go with Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader. Like this was the first lightsaber duel in Star Wars, and we see this like old samurai like Jedi warrior against a guy in the all black suit fighting against each other, and all we know, I don't know if people assume this, but it's like they probably didn't know each other because the dialogue and all that, but yeah, it was the first lightsaber duel we got, and we didn't see much of it. We only saw like they clash a little bit, and then near the end where they're about to leave the Death Star, we see Obi-Wan look back at Luke, and then he looks back at Darth Vader, and then Darth Vader takes one swing, and then I bet the audience was like, wait, Obi-Wan disappeared. Wait, what happened?
Can't do that, can he? Holy hell, can he do that?
Where'd he go? And then Luke just leaving.
Vader starts kicking the robe like, is he?
Yeah, he goes,
Is he?
Like, he's poking the robes like, what happened? But then as Luke is leaving, then you just hear his voice is like, I forgot what he says, but then you
run,
hear his
Luke,
voice.
run.
Yeah, run. And it's like, y'all, I'm guessing the audience were just like, what just happened? But yeah, that it and I don't know if you saw the re-edited version, but on YouTube.
Scene 42 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. When watching that, it's a lot more, action packed, all that stuff. I like it, but it kind of takes away from the whole duel itself.
SC-37.
Yeah, that's
sorry.
What it is.
I got
Reimagine.
Element 7 here in the chat. So
but yeah, but I feel like a lot of people wanted that duel to be part of New Hope, but I feel like they're just it's just two different things.
And then Megan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is also, I mean, this is obviously the core of like the adventure ramping up. And George Lucas, I always struggle when I talk about his writing, because while there are areas where he could be stronger, like this is just shot for shot perfect telling of a hero's journey. Like you get everything building up, and then this adventure, the rescue scene is probably like my favorite sequence in the whole movie. And part of that is because George Lucas does such a great job of building the suspense and then not letting down. Like as soon as we jump from hyperspace into the asteroid belt that's actually Alderaan, it just doesn't stop getting more intriguing and exciting from there. They board the Death Star, and then you see like Han and Luke and all them hiding. Han gets a few funny one-liners about being a smuggler. The scene where they take out the stormtroopers and then start to impersonate them, it's just hilarious. It's so ridiculous. It could only happen in a Star Wars movie, but they're like, hey, we need some help up here.
Yeah.
It's like something that would happen in Scooby-Doo, but it works. It's so good. And then he really, I mean, like Josh was talking about earlier about it being just like a perfect microcosm of events, like lightning in a bottle. The cast, the original trio, the chemistry between these three actors, like Luke and Han have great chemistry right off the bat.
Amazing.
And seeing how like Luke plays the good guy and Han's like, I don't care about being good.
Right?
Like,
You guys suck.
Exactly. Like, you can't pressure me because I don't care. Like, it's great. But then Leia joins in and you're like, how could this be better? And it's amazing. And my favorite part about Act 2 is probably when they're enacting this dramatic rescue, and it takes approximately like 0.5 seconds for Leia to just commandeer the whole operation. And she's like, you guys clearly don't know what you're doing. I'm gonna just totally control my own rescue from here on out. Yeah, and thank God she did, because I don't know that they would have gotten off the Death Star.
They had no idea what was happening. I love how when Leia shows up and kind of joins that kind of band of idiots, like her personality, like first it was Han Solo's personality just encapsulating the entire room, and then Leia shows up almost like foreshadowing their eventual relationship. Like she just takes away like 80% of his energy, and he's like, you can see him getting offended at her being. He's like, whoa, let's calm down, guys. He originally is just like, I don't care. Why are we here? Why are we here? Why are we doing all this? And she's like, all right, yeah, you do that, you do that. And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Who are you again? And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, he's getting mad now. So I love that dynamic between them.
It's amazing too, because he didn't even want to go on the adventure, but then he gets so pissed off when she's taking over. He's like, wait, who put you in charge? I mean, Mom, you definitely weren't the one in charge. Like, why do you care?
Yep. Like when he chased the stormtroopers, like he wouldn't have done that if Leia wasn't there. He was showing off, low key.
Totally.
He was flexing. He was flexing.
Yeah, ran into like 400 stormtroopers in the. He's like, oh my god! I love him.
I immediately regret this decision.
Right. And shot one on his way out.
But then also, like you guys said, the comedy beats. Like it was an awesome adventure, and it was sci-fi, but the sci-fi was not the point of it. It wasn't to show that this is sci-fi. It was to show how human it was. It was showing the opposite in this setting. And humor and things were a lot subtler back then, but the comedy beats were just perfect of like everything's under control. Slight weapons malfunction. Everything's perfectly fine now. How are you?
What's your operating number? Shoots it. Boring conversation anyway.
Obviously Leia's opening line, aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper? As well as C-3PO going, they're dying in there.
Right? I can hear them dying.
C-3PO is an unsung hero for sure.
Seriously. Those two little droids were the comic relief that carried the entire first act. They were so great.
Yeah.
By the way, that trash scene where C-3PO is screaming at R2-D2 to like stop them from dying, that's how it feels like in the IT tech support world, where they're in the middle of a giant meeting and they're like, Josh, the monitor's not working. I'm like, why isn't it working? And then you just unplug it, and for whatever reason it starts working. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's my job, guys.
Yeah, no, I know that feel.
Yeah.
Why is this wrong? You're like, it's been 1.5 seconds since you told me what the problem is.
I'm not God, sir.
And then well, actually, I didn't get to Josh yet. Actually.
Duh. What was the question? I'm sorry.
We're talking about the second act.
Second act.
You can take a second. One thing that jumps out to me is and it was also mentioned by my boy Slapnut84 here in the chat. the subtle little smile that Obi-Wan gives right before he goes out. And it wasn't until recently someone posted like he's actually looking at Luke and Leia together for the first time since they were born.
Really?
I'm like, come on, man. Like, you gotta not hit me right in the feels like
Dang,
that.
man, I
You know
didn't
what I
notice
mean?
that.
Like,
Huh.
but yeah, Josh on the second act.
Oh, so gosh. Yeah, probably the second act, my favorite part. Obviously, one of the highlights is the Darth Vader Obi-Wan fight. And anybody who's seen the prequels, it's like a rematch that you kind of get to see before the original fight, so it's pretty cool. But my favorite part is probably when they're all kind of like after the initial fight and Leia's kind of like chilling there, and then she's kind of like talking about how she's in charge and everything like that. I love the dialogue between the guy. They go off of each other so well. I like how Han Solo's trying to like desperately grab back attention, and Leia's kind of just brushing him off. Like she calls Chewie a walking carpet, and Chewie's like, okay, that hurt, but okay. I love how it just works. I love Luke Skywalker talking, and he's trying to like the whole sequence where she's like, aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper? And he takes off the helmet, and it's just, this is so 70s hero. It's they show the scene all the time, but it's when he's like, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue you. And I was just like,
He's got
this
his
is the
Farrah
most
Fawcett, like,
it's like the
feathered
little
look.
it's the most 70s like dun dun dun.
I think all men should have their hair like that these days. I mean, women too, frankly. It's a good look.
I'll do you one better. I think all men should look like Mark Hamill.
Okay, yeah.
No, but yeah,
just
exactly.
Yeah.
Dad Hamill. But no. But yeah, that's probably my highlight. I just like the overall characters going off of each other. I like the chemistry between the two, and then the three, and then Chewie. Even Chewie kind of pulls his own weight, and he doesn't speak any words whatsoever. So yeah, I love it.
Kind of similar to like Avatar and gang Avatar. It gives me those vibes a little bit. So
Yeah, and that's like the perfect thing, because you have the dynamic between Han and Chewie, and the dynamic between Han and Obi-Wan, and Han and Luke, and Han and Leia, and every single person has their own dynamic with every other person that's completely unique to just them, and it just kind of just makes this like a rich symphony. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just great. I mean, so
it's really one big vibe. It's just one big vibe. Like
yeah.
Their entire chemistry is just one big vibe.
That is a great way to describe it. But yeah, and as this movie is building, we keep getting like these subtle hints of the Force, and it's just like each moment it's dipping further and further. We did kind of pass over it, but yeah, we saw Luke train a little bit on the Falcon, block the bolts. Super light and not impressive for anyone, but you're like, that's cool, and that trick is going to be very useful later. You know what I mean?
Across all movies,
was not impressed. And then when Alderaan gets blown up, we get Obi-Wan sitting down. I'm like, wow, I feel the great disturbance. It's as if a million voices cried out in terror and then were suddenly silenced. You know what I mean? As you start understanding a little bit more about, okay, is this a connection to people or whatever? I don't understand what this power is, but I need more of it, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. And so that's, yeah, there's just a lot to love here. All right, so now our crew escapes, and they're out doing their thing. They're heading over to Yavin, to the real location, not the fake location that Dantooine that she gave them. So yeah, let's jump into Act 3. They arrive there at Yavin and have to figure out like what are we going to do, all the way through the end with the medal ceremony. Curious what thoughts jump out of you guys. Start with Megan.
The third act, I think, is really fun. I think that again with the building of the story, like he does such a good job because still remember watching it as a kid and being surprised every time that there's like more action after the Death Star, because it feels very climactic, and then at the same time they build up more and you're like, oh yeah, like wait, they're gonna destroy that whole thing. It's just like super cool. And I love that you get to see Luke interact with people that he knew before, like obviously getting to see him say hi to Wedge. You get to like that sense that he is that like, you know, neighborhood kid kind of feeling. And I think it raises the stakes a little bit. But I also really love the amount of screen time that Tarkin gets in the final act, because Tarkin is one of my favorite villains. He is just, that guy is so menacing. I remember, I think, it could have been honestly one of your TikToks that I watched. So if it was, please let me know. But I remember watching something recently where someone was talking about who's in charge, Vader or Tarkin, like who in the hierarchy is in charge here. And honestly, as the viewer, the whole time, you're like, is Tarkin really, does he really think he can take on Vader? But at the same time, you're like, maybe he could though. You know, like Tarkin is just super menacing and terrifying. And I think I would rather be alone in a room with Darth Vader than Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just, at least Vader would just kill you, I feel like.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then the climax I just think is so great. Like if we're going with the hero's journey and like the story beats, like the pacing is perfect. You know, we've got the Han leaves at the last minute and Luke's like, what, you're gonna leave us like this? And then all hope is lost, flyers are going down, you know, so long, Red 7. But right at the last minute, Han comes in to save Luke, and Luke makes the shot. Like it's beautiful. Also, on a completely unrelated note, that final ceremony scene, every single time I watch it, I'm bummed that knee-high riding boots for men have never come back in style, because it's amazing. And I blame this scene 100% for my obsession with the look. It's a good look. I'm here for it.
Yeah, my family used to own a horse ranch, so I've seen too much of it. Too much.
Brenda said, "Not soon enough."
Pirates of the Caribbean might have played into this as well, but it's definitely a thing.
Element 7 calls Tarkin the Tywin Lannister before Tywin.
That's exactly
Lannister.
who he is.
Oh, that
exactly
is
who he is.
Yes.
Yep, he's exactly who he is.
That is the comparison. Yeah.
Yep. And if you know Tywin, you know like the energy that Tarkin oozes. That's absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if you looked up a certain George R.R. Martin interview and he said that he was one of the inspirations for like how he would be like, I don't know, or at least the showrunners would look at Charles Dance and be like, oh yeah, if Peter Cushing was still alive, he'd be a damn good Tywin, but Charles Dance is a damn good second.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then personally, two really quick things. There's 2 canon books. One is Lost Stars, and in that, Tarkin pops up a couple times, and he is like a loving grandfather. Like his energy in it, and it's creepy as hell. You're like
not used to it.
I don't know.
You're like what? Yeah, he's the one that inspired these people to join the Empire. They're rising up the ranks. They run into him again, and she's like, "Oh, thank you." And he actually remembers her, and he's like a mentoring figure. And it's crazy. But then I also highly recommend everyone reads the Tarkin novel. It's actually my favorite canon novel. I don't recommend it to everyone because it's very wordy. It's a James Luceno book for sure, but he goes to some dark places, man. Like he's no joke.
You can also tell by and just a quick segue, you can also tell by how many Easter eggs he puts in that book that he wants really badly for the Darth Plagueis novel to like come back in some form. Darth Plagueis is, in my opinion, one of the greatest Star Wars novels in history, in my opinion. Absolutely. And it's not canon. It's about Palpatine's rise and how he became a Sith Lord under Darth Plagueis. It covers from his childhood essentially up until right after he becomes Chancellor, and it's like it's an absolutely fantastic. It's a lot. It's really wordy, just like Tarkin is. But if you loved Tarkin, if you liked Tarkin, you're going to love Darth Plagueis. But yeah.
Oh yeah, it's not easy reading, but
It's not.
it's phenomenal reading, and
But
all the little details pay off.
Right.
They all.
If
do.
you're not a big reader, listen to the audiobook. It's a lot. The guy who they got to do it, if you're familiar with the show The Nanny, the butler, Daniel Davis, he does the audiobook and he does a damn good Plagueis. He does a damn good Plagueis. And you don't even know how Plagueis sounds, but that's just
it just works.
If I remember correctly, didn't Tarkin and Darth Vader try to hunt each other down?
There's a comic on that.
Yeah, there's a comic.
It's like a dangerous game type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, like, you know, rather be in a room with Darth Vader than Tarkin. Yeah, because of that comic. Yeah, Tarkin.
I mean, I highly recommend. Yeah, highly recommend that comic. In the comic, basically, it's close. You know what I mean? It's not.
It's a close. Yeah.
Vader. They're like, okay, well, we're at least safe because, you know, if he's close enough, we can hear him coming. And then Vader turns off his respirator and hunts them down. But
yes, energy.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
He just took one deep breath before he turned it off. He's like, I was like,
I'm just running on spite, you know.
Right. Sheer rage.
But yeah, I would jump in. So we got the third final act. Josh, what jumps out of you?
Oh, one of the greatest Star Wars sequences in Star Wars history, the trench run. The entire Death Star battle. It's a classic. And every time I go back and watch it, it still carries that level of heaviness to it. It's a very
how does it hold up? I don't know.
Incredibly. I like, in a way, it's like Top Gun before Top Gun. Like it's like I know the miniatures, and I don't know how much of that was like special edition, like some of the angles of the X-Wings. Maybe they did something a little differently. I don't know, but all I know is like when they do the die, when they attack the surface, when X-Wings die, you actually kind of like feel, even though you barely know these guys and you never will know these guys, you're like, damn, there must have been a heavy loss right there. You like, they talk to each other, they're getting shot. The final trench run is so heavy because the first two don't succeed. So you're like, oh God, now Luke has to go down there. There's literally pretty much no more X-Wings. It's like, oh God, what's going to happen? So you see the first guys who were kind of meant to do the trench run fail. And then like they kind of have to do a makeshift trench run with Red Leader and I think two others. And he gets his missile off, but it doesn't succeed in going into the exhaust port. And then he ends up getting killed by Vader too. And Vader's almost like puppy guarding the trench run, waiting for somebody else to go. And now it's Luke's turn. And you're like, oh gosh.
You're like, you can't camp. There's no camping on this map.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And you see them doing the trench run, and you see like the thing kind of close until they get locked in. And you're kind of like, go Luke. You gotta shoot it, man. You gotta shoot it. And just the sheer, like when I first watched it, the sheer like exhilaration, what do they call it these days? Serotonin that you get from watching it. And it's when Obi-Wan's talking to Luke and he's using his targeting computer and he's like, use the Force, Luke, use the Force. And he's like, okay. He turns off the targeting computer, and imagine being on Yavin.
Like, the hell?
And you're like, Luke, you turn it off. Are you kind? That's okay. That's the equivalent. That's the equivalent of somebody going on like a bombing run, and it's the fate of the world's at stake. And they go, why'd you turn it off? Don't worry, guys. Jesus will guide me. And you're like, guys, it's been a pleasure. And that's not dissing anybody, but that's the equivalent of what that is. It's like, don't worry, guys, God's got me. And you're like, okay, all right, cool. And
like,
so
I've listened to Jesus Take the Wheel. It didn't inspire me this much, but
right, it inspired me to use the targeting computer, bro. But no, that whole entire like, and then R2 gets shot, and you're like, oh no, what is going on? Everybody's dying. This is killing me. And the classic, I have you now. And then Han Solo comes out of, it's like a WWE entrance when they're like, oh, I hear the Han Solo music. He's coming out. Oh my God, it's coming out. And, if you guys have seen, somebody recorded an audio recording of a Star Wars opening night reaction to that scene.
Oh,
I don't know
wow.
where they got, and apparently it's legit. The cheers that came up when Han Solo and they reveal the Millennium Falcon coming out, and it's like it's such a cool angle. He comes out like in the sunlight, and you're like, oh my god, it's the Millennium Falcon! Like the crowd erupts, and when Luke shoots and it goes in, the crowd goes even crazier. And when it goes stand by, dun 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 dun, poof, the crowd loses their collective blank, and it's I would pay so much money to go back in time and watch that with everybody for the first time, because it's one of the greatest moments ever. That entire sequence, fantastic. Star Wars, quintessential Star Wars. And also to throw out there, Leia looked fantastic in the final scene in the medal ceremony. She looked amazing. I love her.
Yeah, look at that 70s fashion going on. It's working for them all.
Yep.
You've inspired me to do two things. One, to edit some Top Gun music into the trench run, just to see how it like, and then to also edit John Cena's music as Han Solo arrives.
Get the announcers. What was that? Oh!
No, I need both of those things. CJ, we got the third act. What do you think?
The whole I have to go with Josh. The whole sequence was amazing. It was action packed. There was some times where you were just like, is he gonna do it? Like, is it gonna happen? Like, what's gonna happen? It's like you just didn't know what was happening. The music, I have this appreciate the music. The music was fitted in the right times. Think sometimes it was intense, sometimes it was a little quiet, sometimes you can hear the little Force theme, when Obi-Wan is talking to Luke saying use the Force, Luke. Yeah, but the whole sequence was amazing. It was really cool to watch, and as again, I would love to go back there to see like everyone's reaction, Han coming back, Luke blowing up the whole Death Star and everyone celebrating. So the whole sequence was just amazing and fun to watch. And it's and and also the ending was perfect, perfect ending.
Let's well, okay, first of all, I do have a big bone to pick.
Uh-oh.
Why do you gotta name him Porkins? Come on now.
Look, man.
Why do you gotta name the heavy guy Porkins? That's, I don't know. It just seemed a little messed up. But no, like you guys said, it was beautiful, and we get to see him. It was our first time seeing X-Wings. Do you remember how cool our first time seeing an X-Wing was? And
the wings come up like X's. You're like, oh my god, what, they can't do that? What the hell?
And looking back on this, it's actually this thing is one of the things that makes me appreciate movie making most of all. Because like if you saw X-Wings once they dropped R2 in it, half of R2 is hanging out the bottom of the X-Wing. It looks really stupid, but like movie magic and stuff is just like, I don't know, it's so beautiful. And this is also a film where and I don't know how George Lucas knew to do this, but to create the music alongside filming and writing it, not having it scored just purely afterwards. The score is being, because that's really what adds so much like intensity, and I don't know.
I didn't know he did that, actually. I had no idea.
For all of the movies, for all of them, the music was being written alongside of the story unfolding. And
it's a similar thing for the Joker movie as well. The director and the conductor worked together with the music to try to fit in these right scenes. So I just want to add to that.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, it just adds like this crazy level of depth. Plus, we have Luke reaching out for to the Force for the first time. We're hearing Obi-Wan still talking. The first time it's just run, Luke, and you're like, okay, were you imagining this? Did we? I don't know.
You really say that?
Was there
Were you
mushrooms
phone a-
around? Like, it
were
is
you
the
phone a
70s.
friend or
There must have been something funny in that water in the
blue milk,
you know.
you know?
But yeah, he comes back up, and you're like, okay, well, I know he died, so what's happening? And then he reaches out with the Force, and at that moment, Vader is like, the Force is strong with this one. And I have to know. What does that mean? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was just beautiful. And then the ceremony, the music that plays during the award ceremony is just so beautiful and iconic. And as someone where I try to write myself, I'm not great at it, but having that be the wrap up is so beautiful for this film. But it's the only film I can think of that ends with this. You know what I mean? Like, how do you end this and have it be a solid end and potentially make more? And they happened to do it, and they did it perfectly. Yeah, there's just so much awesomeness that happened. I don't know.
The only other season or movie or production that I can think of that kind of told an open closed story while also leaving it open was probably Legend of Korra.
Mm-hmm.
Originally Legend of Korra was supposed to be a mini series, was supposed to be one season, 12 episodes.
Season, yeah.
And I think that's the reason why it fits so well, because they went in thinking, all right, this is probably only going to be one season. Let's leave it open for more in the future. But I'd argue that Star Wars did a better job of it, while also feeling natural, because as good as Legend of Korra was on its own, the first season of it was very clear that the creators had no intention initially of making more seasons.
Yeah.
George Lucas was hoping he could make more movies. So he was like, all right, it's like a begrudging, all right, let me make this close-ended if this doesn't do well at the box office. But if it does, we're going to follow up on all this stuff. And so I'd argue that Legend of Korra was probably one of the only other ones that did a good job of it while managing to do both. But I think Star Wars is by far the king of that, being
Absolutely.
able to do that.
I mean, you have to think, this is 1977. Sequels aren't a thing.
Right.
There is no such thing as a franchise movie.
Yeah.
You make a movie,
trilogies.
you're in and you're out. You know what I mean? And like, everything's run by movie stars, you know? And that and it's also crazy. Go ahead.
Sorry. I honestly think that as much as like optimistic as Lucas was about the potential for the future, he was also, I think, pretty realistic about the fact that it was entirely likely that it just wasn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that he had ideas for a further story, but he also, like, I mean, he just wrote the perfect encapsulated action story, and it was definitely smart not to leave it on any more of a cliffhanger, because I think the audiences, that was one of the reasons why it was so successful, because audiences were like, this was so great, and when they found out that there'd be another one, it was like, oh, there's more, I can't wait. It's just an endless possibilities kind of situation.
Yeah. And again, like I said, lightning in a bottle. This movie came out, it was called Star Wars. He didn't know if he was going to get it. If he didn't get any other funding or a second movie, then he was going to self-do Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and it was going to end it with that. But he got the funding for Empire, and Empire Strikes Back was called Star Wars Episode 5, and it was like,
what?
What?
Are you kidding?
Timing.
Did
I miss that episode?
Did I stroke out for like a couple decades, or like what's going on?
So A New Hope and the first Star Wars, for obvious reasons, but also like significantly, based on how it was done and how successful it was, if that movie hadn't knocked it out of the park, we would not be having a podcast talking about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Even if it was a well-received movie, if it didn't financially kick ass, like nobody was really expecting it to do, we would not be having this conversation right now. So Star Wars: A New Hope, or just Star Wars, was really like the granddaddy. I mean, Empire Strikes Back is the golden boy. Like, we all accept that, I think, universally. but Star Wars: A New Hope, like that's like the granddaddy that always deserves a certain amount of reverence when you talk about it, because it's like, oh, if this is like the reason it happened. This is like the OG. And so when you look at it, even though you might think that Empire Strikes Back does certain things better than Star Wars, it's almost not really the point. It's kind of like, no, like, but this was the first one to do it, and that's why it's such a special movie.
Yeah, and for that very reason is why it's actually a little bit lower on my list, because this is the basis point this is the soil. Fair. But I need to stress it. Doesn't mean I don't love it. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean I don't know what it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was just mind blowing. And we have to think of things like Star Trek predates Star Wars. Mm-hmm. It got canceled. The only reason it came back is because of the popularity of Star Wars.
Don't tell
That's a crazy thought. You know what I mean?
Oh, you don't know. No. It's like, okay, all right.
But okay, so Joe, we kind of touched on it before, but I'll just kind of merge the next two questions together. Is what do you think this was like if you were in 1977? You had no idea what you were going into. What would it be like to see it for the first time? And what other thoughts, tidbits, extra little goodies do you have now that we have all 9 episodes? We have Clone Wars, we have Rebels, we have Rogue One. You have always so many. We have Han's backstory in Solo. Here's how this affects it. And if you put all these thoughts together, what do you come out with? So 2 questions: seeing it 77 and modern day. Now that we have all of this information, what does that change? And I'm going to Megan.
So actually, I don't have to imagine what it would be like to see it in 1977. I'm not that old, but my dad has told me the story of the first time he went to the theaters and saw this. I don't know. I can't even count the number of times he's told me. But my dad was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 when it came out, and he had a little brother. So he tells me all the time about how magical it was to go, and he'd never seen anything like it before. And theaters back then, they didn't have anybody coming in between showings. You could just sit there and watch screenings multiple times if you wanted to. So yeah, he told me that the first time he saw it, they sat through 2 screenings before they had to go home. But he and his brother saved up their own money so that they could go buy tickets to go see it twice more. And they sat through it. The longest they ever got there was like 2.5 because they were pretty young. But yeah, he was fully obsessed, and he's gone through the minutia of it with me so many times that I really feel like I was there almost, but I am still jealous that I was not actually there because it sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
As far as like the larger Star Wars universe, I'm kind of getting into the extended universe now. I've always been like a cinephile first, so the movies have always been like king to me. And the original trilogy obviously is my like number one baby. I love it so much. But it's interesting. We were talking about a lot of stuff earlier, like the doors that Star Wars opened for sci-fi. And it's always been a little bit ironic to me because while Star Wars is a great sci-fi story, it's more of like a fairy tale than anything else, the way that the story structure exists. And Josh mentioned earlier something about when Luke takes off his helmet for the first time and he meets Princess Leia and he's like, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue. Like, if you put all of the dialogue from the film with very minor changes into like a medieval fantasy setting, it would work just as well. Like it's really cool because I think that that's why it's so compelling. It put a lot of heart and humanity into the sci-fi genre, whereas like the previous sci-fi films were kind of a little bit more sterile in terms of like the storytelling, definitely a lot more intense. But yeah, I think that it's super cool. I think that Lucas, as we talked about earlier, he deserves all the credit that he gets for creating this world that's just so incredible, that has something that everyone can connect to. And you absolutely shouldn't feel any kind of way about where your ranking of New Hope is or anything like that. I think it's so awesome. Like, I'm obviously like one of the, I think that the original trilogy people sometimes come off as being a little bit stormtrooper, and this is the one that you should like
elitist.
yeah. But no, I mean, I I love the prequels for what they are. I love the sequels for what they are. I think that no matter what part of the Star Wars universe like touched you and affected you, I love that. I love that about the worlds. I think they're so cool, and especially we've gotten to see the universe grow. Rogue One's one of my favorites. I think that it was really cool for I know a lot of people who love Ahsoka, and seeing the different kind of characters that they've introduced, something like for everyone, you know, a world. And there's more to Star Wars can definitely be a little bit more diverse, but
Nah.
they're trying.
They're trying.
You know, I think that SNL did a couple of really good sketches after the Solo movie came out. And yeah, like I mentioned before, I'd love to see Lando, especially if it's going to be Donald Glover. That would be amazing. I would love to see some more of that. But yeah, it's awesome. I'm also really excited for whatever project Taika Waititi's attached to. I think that's going to be cool.
I still don't know what that's about.
I know. I'm literally starving for details on this project.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and COVID-19 knocked everything out of whack, so we're not going to know anything for a while.
it'll be like 5 years.
Yeah.
That's like our shining star in the distance. We can
Yep.
just move on to that.
Yep. You know how they say like in the news, like they'll be like coming up next, after, and then like at the end it's like coming soon. You're like, oh yeah, that's like 4 hours from now. Yeah, let's not worry about that for a while. Or later today, you're like, oh God. You're like, God.
Don't touch that dial. Don't touch that dial. It's coming up at some point.
It's
Please,
like watching
we
it
need
in a Super Bowl like pre-show that starts like 6 hours before. Like, all right, come on. Oh, but yeah, Josh, your thoughts on it?
Oh gosh. First question was if I could go. Oh gosh, I think it would be. It wouldn't be. I think realistically, if I was watching that for the first time, I'd be extremely skeptical, because I was skeptical when I got it. Like when I was a kid, a 6-year-old, when I got it from the library, I was like, this looks weird, but I can't get anything else. I'll check it out. And I think, but the moment I think I would have sat down, I would have absolutely been enamored with it, the entire story. I would have wanted to know more, and it would have killed me back in 77 to know more, because when I'm a kid in 2006, 2007, there's 3 more movies and 7 more movies that you can watch, and you're like, oh, like this is what the rest of the story is. If I'm watching that in 1977, I'm probably getting really upset, because I'm like, I want to, are they going to do more? Is that the end? Like what? But so yeah, I think that's realistically how I would be. I'd probably be crushed, because I'd be like, I want more now, and I'd probably get every single piece of Star Wars merchandise, all the crappy action figures there is known to man.
Yep.
And I'd be one of the OG Star Wars nerds. I truly believe I would be in love with Star Wars back then. The second question, Star Wars today, in retrospect, I guess you could say.
Like just watching Rogue One, like add a whole new layer,
dude. About 50 new layers, or at least context to a lot of what A New Hope was. I love the little. I'm always been, as a Star Wars fan, I've always been a big fan of interconnectivity. I like when stuff makes sense. Like I like when you do a kid show and something happens there, or a character kind of does the jump over to like a live action movie that maybe not everybody understands who it is, but a couple of the really diehard fans or the really dedicated fans, it's like a really nice touch. You're like, oh wow, like you're reintroducing them for the masses, but we already knew about this character, and that's really cool. So Star Wars did a lot of that, and watching stuff like Rogue One makes me go back and watch A New Hope and go, wow, those were the stakes. Like watching Rogue One, like all these guys sacrifice themselves, all of these no-name soldiers that most people would never learn about, like risking their lives and dying. Really, the entire main cast dies essentially. And that's never been done before in Star Wars. And it never probably will be done in Star Wars. And to understand that, and then you go and watch A New Hope again, and you're like, wow, like that's even more triumphant for them to win. Because really the bad guys kind of win at the end of Rogue One. It's kind of a situation where Tarkin looks unstoppable. Darth Vader is, the hallway scene, truly unstoppable. Everybody dies. It almost looks hopeless, and you're like, damn, that's crazy. Oh wait, I see what ends up happening. They end up winning. That's cool. So it's such a huge moment to kind of like go back and watch like Alderaan, you see people like Bail Organa get fleshed out, and it kills you because you know that what ends up happening to him, you're like, oh, he's such a good character on his own, and he has to die here. And it's like, oh my God. So really, I think Star Wars is kind of like the original Star Wars is like in the center of this giant Lucasfilm web where like everything kind of ties back into this and that and that. And it's such an amazing experience. And I hope that Star Wars continues to be that kind of glue that kind of keeps this entire universe intact and keeps making it fresh. Like there's still so much about A New Hope that could be delved into. Like we could go into Tatooine like during that period of time. We could go into Alderaan's final moments. Like you could do a lot of that kind of stuff. There's just so much about A New Hope that kind of really set the tone, and I'll always appreciate it for what it is. It's truly a masterpiece in its own way.
It is absolutely a masterpiece. Yeah.
I'm really bad at long-winded answers, so
no, it was beautiful.
So okay.
I'm just along for the ride. Shoot.
You're so right about Rogue One. Like it seriously, and that's what I like about the extended like universe stories. How I love that they're kind of branching off from the Skywalker saga. But I think that the coolest part of it is if it's done right, like that how the Mandalorian is taking place kind of adjacent to stories that we know about. It expands the world, and Rogue One really, I think the original Star Wars was rated PG. You know, I mean, which is great because it's inclusive, but there's no, I mean, there's stakes, but you don't see blood. You don't see, all of the deaths are very, you know, suitable for small children to watch. And then you watch Rogue One and you're like, oh, wow. Oh. Yeah, no, they should take down the Empire like yesterday. They're bad people. Yep. It's definitely raised the stakes a lot, I thought. And I can't wait to see them do it more.
Yep. So I'm just thinking about shooting the robot, and then K2SO walks behind. It's like, did you know that wasn't me?
Yeah, I love the snap head. He's like.
I love K2SO so much.
CJ, your thoughts on it?
So the first question, I would have been, if I was back in, at that time, it would have been really exciting, you know, getting dove into this universe that no one has seen before, you know, seeing aliens, droids talking, you know, lightsaber clashing, you know, starfighter assaults, all that. It's really amazing to see. It would have been really cool and, you know, eye-opening to see during that time. And I would be just begging, like, is there going to be a second movie? Like, what's going to happen? Like, you know, I would have been a fan at that time, and I would have wanted to know more of the Star Wars universe or what they're going to continue on. But the second question, like all the stuff we watch, like Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith, and it really just dope. And like Rogue One, it really just, you know, ties back to like how A New Hope, you know, how everything happened with the New Hope, like how everything led to, you know, to the beginning technically of Star Wars. So I just like how, you know, shows or, you know, movies like to do tiebacks and, you know, try to connect in such a cool way that, you know, we never really seen it before. So it's really, so from seeing like all the 9 movies or shows, it's really great callbacks to like little moments and, you know, nitpicks and all that.
Yeah. Personally, I think of I think the first time I saw Phantom Menace in theaters, and the doors open, and Maul ignites his lightsaber, and then the second half lights up, and I just lost it. You know what I mean? Like, I think I just went blind. I don't know. I was like an anime character where blood shot out of my nose. Like, and I imagine in 1977, that's what a lightsaber looked like to them. You know what I mean? Like, there was no.
Like, whoa.
It's
like, we never seen a lightsaber like that.
I think there's a strong argument to say that the lightsaber is the most iconic fantasy weapon of all time.
I think so too. I think so too. Recognizable, at least.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what a lightsaber is. My mom, she'll say it wrong. She'll say lifesaver, but like she knows what it is.
But
Oh,
what
that's Darth
flavor is it?
Vader. Yeah. What flavor is it, Mom? Cherry? What? Bless her heart, she'll probably try and answer too. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm joking. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, but it's I don't know. I just imagine like seeing that fight for the first, and then also we got to give it to Alec Guinness, right? He is
Oh yeah.
such a successful and famous actor, and like he was just like this was. Why did he do this movie? There's no reason for him to do this movie. You know what I mean? Like, you ever think about that?
Yep.
But
I also I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I just have just a subtle thing of when Obi-Wan ignites his lightsaber in this movie, it's because Alec Guinness is pointing it directly at the camera and then slowly turns it to the side so it looks like it's elongating. And it's just like it's such a small little thing, but you're like, man, he's a G, you know? Like, but what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I mean, I also got to give it to Alec Guinness. And by the way, there's no way he would have ever known that any of this would have ended up becoming as big as it was. I'm sure he was very proud of the franchise growing. I'm sure he was also a little salty that that's all people really know him for. Because if you look at some of his movies,
Oh yeah.
fantastic. I watched him in Cromwell. He played Charles the First. Fantastic.
Yeah.
That was like 5 years before Star Wars ever came out. Fantastic
Yeah,
actor.
Peter career too. He was
Right.
Huge deal.
Exactly. Absolutely a phenomenal actor. And I'm not ashamed to say Star Wars is what got me interested in him. I'm like, okay, cool. But I needed to learn more about him after that. But anyway, I got to give it up to Alec Guinness for giving those nods that ended up helping like expanded canon in a really fantastic way. Like, look at the scene where we meet him for the first time. He saves Luke from the Tusken Raiders. And he's talking to him and he's like, oh, Ben Kenobi, I'm glad to see you and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what brings you out this far? And he's like, oh, this little droid. And I don't know why, but like when he sees R2 and he kind of gives that, and I'm like, oh my God, like somebody who cares too much about lore like me could be like, yo, he totally remembers R2.
Yeah.
He totally remembers R2D2. And that look like why else would he make that look if not to be like, I know you. And then he goes, so you do know him? Oh, of course I know him. He's me. And he's like,
I love that line, by the way.
He's like, I don't seem to, yeah, he's like, yeah, and he's like, I don't seem to remember.
He's not dead, not yet.
Yeah, I don't seem to remember ever owning a droid. And it's like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like, well, technically he never did own R2, but his buddy did. And it's like, oh my God. And I love I love how he kind of inadvertently makes that like make sense. I love how they kind of made that make sense. And because like it's really, yeah, but Alec Guinness is a trooper.
How the hell do you act a twinkle in your eye? You know what I mean? Like he does it consistently.
No, he absolutely does. And like Obi-Wan has this reputation, especially in the original trilogy, for being like, you know, this sage Jedi master. But he's like, he plays the comedy and the serious like side by side so well. It's amazing. He's just a super endearing character. Even like on Tatooine where they're like going and he's like, these aren't the droids you're looking for. Like, it's serious, but you're like, you totally get that. He's just having fun playing with these idiots. Like,
the right amount of sass.
Yeah, he's the ultimate troll.
Yeah, and Ewan McGregor captures that pretty well. He's the very like, oh yes, indeed, yes. Like,
that's why I'm here.
It's British, it's English, it's lovely, it's brilliant. Right. You don't need to see his identification. It's like, why does he do it? Like, you don't need to see it. Imagine if that didn't work. You don't need to see his identification. He's just like, huh? And he's like, punch it, Luke. Go. Like, oh my God, step on it. And Luke's like, what the hell is this? What are you doing?
What's that supposed to mean?
It's a thing we do,
I was
Luke.
Stretching. Don't worry. Like,
it's a thing we do, Luke. It's a thing we do.
Jedi's just talk with their hands. We're like Italian.
I'm
Jedi
Italian,
business. Go back to your drinks. Jedi business. Go back to your drinks.
But yeah, when it comes to like all these tie-ins, especially now we have all these movies and all, it really is indicative of what makes this universe amazing, and that's the fact that you could be in the cantina, point to that random dude over there, and that guy has a full history and a story and it's interesting. You know what I mean? Like Figure and Dan and that that band has an interesting story. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
There's actually a book called From a Certain Point of View. I don't recommend it because it's largely garbage, but
Oh,
it's a canon novel that goes alongside A New Hope, and it's all of the same events but from different people's point of views.
oh, I know what you're
And
doing.
there are some really amazing stories in it. But just the ties and stuff, like, and that's what this universe does. It makes you look at this random person and say, who is this guy? You know what I mean? We have the people in at the bar. We're wanted men. I've got the death sense. You know what I mean? Like
12
I don't
planets.
like.
You're like,
He doesn't like you either. I want to. What are you guys up to? Like, where are you guys coming from?
right?
Their story is actually told in that book. It's actually kind of crazy, but yeah, that's what it does. It's just so open, and that's why you watch Rogue One and it ends, and you immediately have to start watching this movie. It's just like you said, it's so interconnected. It's beautiful, and actually succeeds at this better than any medium I've ever seen, because I've never seen anything connect comics, novels, and the movies in one universe so well. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
People like shitting on. Oh, sorry for the cursing. I was doing so well. People trash Disney for a lot of Star Wars related things. And I don't disagree with all of them. One of the things that I'll never really give them any crap for is their decision. I think this is one of the best decisions they ever made when they bought Star Wars. It was keeping canon a really important aspect of the Star Wars lore. Because they did not have to do that. They could have kept the 6 movies and then did whatever they wanted between that. They could have gotten rid of all of it. They would have had every right to. I don't know if George Lucas made them put a clause in there to protect the Clone Wars. He probably did. But like, if they hadn't made that call to be as focused on making sure everything stuck together, then we'd be looking at a very different Star Wars right now. And I got to give them props for understanding and recognizing that, hey guys, like, this needs to be an important aspect of this universe, because it was before. Now, expanded universe, legends, that kind of stuff, we can take stuff out of that and make one cohesive Star Wars story, or at least as cohesive as you can make a story this big. And so I got to give them props to do that. Give them props for that. They did a really good job so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think canon is really interesting in the Star Wars universe because it's one of, like, again, coming at it from a film perspective, it's one of the only like extended universe stories where canon is like a tangible thing that you can talk about and say this is actually provable. Like when you talk about major films like Inception, things like that, there's theories about, you know, and a lot of directors like to leave things up. Pan's Labyrinth is one of my favorites. Like Guillermo
I love that movie so much. Sorry.
No, I mean it's I could
you brought that out of me. I didn't even want to speak.
But no, like, and Del Toro has said that he's put, you know, hints in the movie to suggest that the magic is real, but he's like most directors saying like it's always up to interpretation. And so Star Wars is interesting to me because there's less of that interpretation. Like I'm in one of the camp where I respect that George Lucas has said that Anakin is the chosen one. But I look at it from a different perspective. Well, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's the chosen one, but not in the way maybe that some people want to think. Oh, sorry, I don't know, my computer's really loud. But so it's interesting though, because you have to, as a fan base, and obviously there's a lot of discourse in the Star Wars fan base and not a lot of agreement in some categories, but canon helps, I think, really kind of get people to a place where we can say, even though there was this like mass amount of media and books and comics, and there's, you know, movies in the Clone Wars, and where you have to kind of bring it all together in some way, you do need the canon, because otherwise it would just be chaos.
Right.
But from a film perspective, I think that there are still aspects of it that can be left up to interpretation.
Right.
And to me, that's exactly where art exists. Art is you have this defined set, be creative within this, and that's where imagination and art, like art without limits isn't anything, you know what I mean? Like um I hope that makes sense.
I get what you're saying.
uh,
Helpful for huge things like this where you can't leave everything up to speculation.
Yeah,
right.
All right, so as we're getting, as we're closing up, this past weekend, a lot of us creators did a thing for Star Wars positivity. I'm curious if you guys have a positive note for the Star Wars universe, and I will go to Josh.
So, positive thing about the Star Wars community, or
a positive message, right? We're trying to build each other up.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I want to start by saying that TikTok, and hopefully it's around for the long term. TikTok has really brought out a lot of my realization that a lot of people love Star Wars. Now, it's always been something I assumed because it's such a successful franchise, but I see people, not just like creators themselves, but people in the comment section, our followers, they kind of go around and they want you specifically to talk about this thing because it has so many different perspectives. What do you think this person thought of when this happened? And it made me realize, I was like, dang, man, like this really tapped into like a lot of our love for this franchise. And I can't imagine anybody being mean about it anymore. I'll be honest with, like, I can't imagine somebody having an opinion and then getting offended at somebody else's opinion about it. It hurts kind of in a way. You look at how people, the mean stuff people said about Kelly Marie Tran and John Boyega. I had a whole video talking about my disdain for people who kind of go after him and Kelly Marie Tran. And so I guess what I have to say is understand that not everyone has the same view of something in Star Wars as you do. Even people who don't agree 100% on everything. And that's the beauty of what Star Wars is. You have countless different points of view, different perspectives, different reasons. Megan, you talked about it earlier, like Star Wars has something for everyone. Yeah. So why, and this might, I'm trying really hard not to rant, but so why, if Star Wars is for everyone, why are we getting so hung up on somebody having a different view of this scene in episode 3 and that scene in episode 5? Why are we getting hung up and name calling? And so yeah, that's what I would say. Understand that we have different views on certain things, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Don't say I think you're wrong and you're a bad person because I think you're wrong. Let's not do that. Yeah.
So I've made it known my second favorite Star Wars movie is The Last Jedi. And the moment I knew that me and Josh would be friends is when he made a TikTok about how much he hates The Last Jedi. But it's because of how he said it, of like, I understand what it was and what they're going for it. I was like, oh my goodness. He's like, he does get it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think
I lost some followers that day too. They were like, you didn't absolutely pan this movie. I was like, it's a good movie. It's a really, I don't want to get too much on it, but it's a good movie. It does things that I don't personally agree. I get why they did these things. Yeah. I understand what they were going for. Don't necessarily agree with it, and that's okay.
I mean, I think that final battle scene, forgive me, I don't remember the name of the planet, but the planet with the red
crate.
Yeah,
red velvet.
Yeah. That was one of the coolest final battles. Like I was blown away by the visuals, and I loved Luke's last stand. I think that the film is flawed, and it's okay to love whatever you love about Star Wars. Like I said earlier, it didn't do the things for me that I wanted to do to put it in like my top 3, but I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I really liked like the final scene of that movie with the little boy in the broom. One of my favorite scenes in the entire Star Wars universe. Like that's what Star Wars should be about, is giving hope to little kids everywhere. You know.
And it's just different. It's just the fact that we all have different thoughts is why I do this. Why I love this so much. But yeah, CJ, your positive, by the way, your positive video was awesome. But yeah, messages.
Um, Probably just gonna take things from my video, but I'll just say this: that we just need to fully listen to each other because, as you know, we all have different opinions on many different things, and it's okay to have different opinions. But going with Josh, like, you shouldn't bash them. You shouldn't say, "Oh, you're an evil person for believing that." Like, let them have their own opinions and let them go with their opinions. Like, we shouldn't force them to change their opinions so that we make ourselves feel better. It's
Yeah.
okay to it's okay to have different opinions. And also, like, as again, people don't like Disney for making these certain things that they don't agree with, but you got to accept it that it's a part of Star Wars, and yeah, you have to move on with it. So that's all I have to say.
No,
And let me just
absolutely.
say real quick, if I come across in any of my videos or whatever I do, I've had a lot of people come up to me and be like, "Damn, Josh, like you really went after this." My intention is never to
I've
be
never gotten that, but
my intention is never to be the guy that everybody's afraid to interact with. I really, the only time I really get angry or really go after something, not necessarily someone, but something that somebody says, is if it's being blatantly disrespectful, rude, purposefully uninformed, just to be right in the situation. If you're being a bigot, that's the only time that I really bring out the sass. If you have a different opinion from me, let's have a discussion. I have no care in the world if somebody has a different opinion from me. That's part of what it is. So just to clarify that, like a lot of
yeah.
people, yeah, I don't want people to be scared. None of
No,
that.
it's all, I feel your pain, man. And Megan, your thoughts for positivity?
Um, well, first of all, I think it takes courage to be, to create content, especially for a fan base that is as, I want to say rabid, but I'm gonna say passionate
Hmm.
about the source material as ours is. And especially on a platform like TikTok where you can be anonymous for the most part, I think a lot of us, we've all gotten our share of comments where people, it's less about the point and more about coming for you as a person for some reason for having a difference of opinion. And so I think sometimes maybe we do come off as a little bit curt, or a little bit angry, but it comes from a place of we're just trying to share something we love with the world, and it doesn't feel great when people come at you and make it personal.
Right.
But I also tried to always be civil, and I just started like a month ago, so as we go, hopefully I'm going to maintain that. But really, the big thing for me is I talked about canon. I see people all the time trying to say things like, well, this isn't right because I don't like it. Rey's not a Skywalker is the big example that comes to mind to me always. I'm sorry, but she is. Like, there's a difference between your opinion and you can't say, oh, in The Departed, people we care about didn't die in the movie because you don't like it. Like,
Yeah,
it happened.
It's a great example.
Like,
you just can't ignore it.
Trying
Exactly.
to make that as low spoilery as I could, but hopefully we've all seen The Departed.
Great movie.
Yeah. But that being said, your opinion that, oh, Jar Jar Binks is objectively a bad character. You might think everybody agrees with that, but it's not an objective truth. Like, Jar Jar Binks is a character that maybe a lot of people enjoyed him. Maybe they enjoyed him for what he was. Maybe they saw it when he was a kid and they liked it like people like the Ewoks. So there's a difference, and I just think that remembering to be respectful and trying to embrace, Star Wars should be a place where people get to just enjoy it. Like, the real world sucks right now. Like,
It
let
does.
people have something that they love to just love in their own way. And I think that it's really interesting for me as a woman who's 31. I went and saw the Clone Wars on one of my first really bad dates. Not the Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones. And in addition to being really disappointed by that movie, it was a really disappointing date. So, it's interesting for me to get to see, like, kids who are, you know, teenagers, early 20s, enjoying completely different sides of this world than I originally did. And I love that for them, because Leia's my hero. And if it's Ahsoka, or if it's Satine, who I just watched the Satine episodes of Clone Wars, and she's awesome. Or
You're
if
gonna love her.
yeah, she seems so great. I'm really into her. But whoever it is, Obi-Wan, like literally anybody. If you love Count Dooku, or if you love General Grievous, if you want to be a Sith, that's cool, man. Why would I care? You know, live your life.
Exactly.
Just be respectful. That's all I say. Because like everybody enjoys things in their own way. That was really long-winded, but those are my thoughts.
No, it's I want to hear all the thoughts. You know, and it, for me, I try to make myself very clear. From the comments, it doesn't always come off that way. But my big thing is, actually, you know what? Ewan McGregor actually said it best, because there is a bunch of news saying, "Oh, he hated the prequels" or whatever. But what he said was, hey, our films weren't liked much when they came out by my generation, who loved the first ones. I think people of our generation wanted to feel the way they felt when they saw those first three movies when they were kids. And then further on, he said he's really aware of the people that those movies were meant for, the kids of that time, and how much they've identified and they love those films. And that's the most important thing. My good buddy, hopefully he's still in the chat, Slapknot84, has his own little series on TikTok of when he's watching a movie, he'll say what a kid would see while watching it versus what an adult will see while watching it. And it's two very different things. A kid will be like, "That's awesome," and an adult will be like, "Well, that doesn't work because of this, and this."
Yep.
And it's all I want. The only thing is to understand that stuff is in all of it. So you saw this when you were a kid and you loved it. You may see this now, and because you're an adult, you see things differently. But these are meant to inform kids of the world that they are growing up in, that they are growing up in, and they are growing up in a different world than you grew up in. I mean, I'm gonna straight up, I feel sorry for any kid growing up in 2020. Like, this is a weird, you know what I mean? Like, I thought Megan, you and I are close in age. I thought we might have been messed up by growing up, and seeing 9/11 happen live, these 2020 kids. Woo! Different ball game. But to understand that, your truth is not everyone's truth. Your history is not everyone's history. All of us are perceiving the world through our own paradigm, right? We're seeing it through our own experiences. And what you love, that person may hate. That person may think it's the stupidest thing in the world. And as long as you understand that someone else may love this, this may be their everything. You can say Rey's not a Skywalker to me, but you could, if this kid, was born non-binary or part of the LGBT community, they may have been disowned by their parents and had to find their own family.
Yep.
And their found family is the most meaningful thing in the world to them because it's all they have.
Mm-hmm.
You saying Rey's not a Skywalker is a dick thing to say to them. And if you can understand that, how precious these things may be to someone else, then maybe you'll talk about it with a little bit more care. That's all. Just a little bit more care. And
I feel like a lot of people, when I was younger, I definitely, especially as a woman, I feel like we're at this age right now where a lot of women are, accepting and kind of critiquing themselves for their previous internalized misogyny. I had it, I definitely used to be one of those girls that was like, I'm different, and I feel like in fan bases still in Star Wars, it's like you're trying to get some street cred by being like, oh, well, if you clearly you're not a true fan, or clearly you don't you don't love Star Wars in the way that it's supposed to be loved. You don't know what you're talking about. It's just coming from a place of insecurity where you're just you're showing that you have to prove to who? To some random person on the internet that your opinion is more valid than theirs. Like it's really silly, especially for a bunch of fantasy movies that were made decades ago. For you to be getting this upset about this, like, do you need a hug? Like, I would like to help you work past this.
Right.
And that's, people seem surprised at how kind I try to be to these people, and that's why this person needs something. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want to be Iruka Sensei from Naruto. Iruka Sensei saved the world. You know that, right? He saved the world by being nice to one kid who everyone treated like garbage for no reason. Iruka Sensei, that's who I want to be. But yeah, all right. So enough the positivity. I mean, it's never enough. But
correct.
Closing thoughts, and where can we find all of you wonderful, beautiful people? CJ, let's start with you.
You can find me on TikTok. I'm known as SithLordCJ, and you can also find me on Insta, SithLordCJ as well. And yeah, just more positivity in the Star Wars community. Just always have a clear mind, and if you're having a discussion and you're disagreeing, just make sure you're respectful.
Absolutely, awesome. And Megan, where can we find you?
I'm currently just on TikTok, Jstoobs, which is just JSTOOBS. And yeah, Star Wars is awesome, and you guys are awesome.
Appreciate it. Last but certainly not least, we have Josh Mace.ah.windu.
Well, thank you again for having me, Brandon, Darth Chaco, Jstoobs, SithLordCJ. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you guys. I've gotten so lucky both times. My first podcast with Haber Jordan, Zach Bravo, and you was an absolute like fan fest. And this one, even though it was different, still had that. I still feel great after listening to you guys and talking to you guys. But you guys can find me on TikTok. I'm known as Mace.ah.windu. There's a funny story behind my name. My friend, he's very proud of having coming up with the name inadvertently. He's like, "Oh, are you still called Mace.ah.windu?" But you guys can find me on TikTok. I have a YouTube channel that I'm trying really hard to kind of build up some more. I haven't posted in a while.
Chrome Hokage.
Chrome Hokage, correct. Yep. I'm trying really hard to push it, especially with the uncertainty surrounding TikTok right now. We don't know what the hell's happening with that right now. If you look for any new news, even the most intricate insiders go, dude, I have no idea. Like, we have no idea. There are so many political things going on that this could either go away on its own, or we could have a world without TikTok. So I think it's wise for all of us, all four of us, and everybody who has a following on TikTok to kind of, if you want to keep doing this kind of stuff, find another avenue just in case. And you want to do that anyway. You kind of want to do it anyway, even if TikTok is around for the long haul. You kind of want to look at other areas to focus on. So that's what I've been doing. You can find me on Chrome Hokage, my YouTube channel. And you can find me for the most part on TikTok as Mace.ah.windu. I have a Twitter account. I get political on it. So if that's not your cup of tea, just don't follow it. But yeah, that's
what is political about Star Wars? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing, right? It's just blowing up planets, authoritarian governments, all that stuff.
Lightsaber duels,
everything. From what I understand, war is inherently non-political.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I like when you come out and say, "Dang, that's kind of tells you a story about what's going on in today's political climate." Completely neutral thing to say.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Josh, can we stop talking about politics? I came here for Star Wars content.
I keep seeing that. You're always on my For You page, and I keep seeing that. I'm like, if you don't like it, just scroll.
It's the only time I get a fire in my eyes. I'm like, look, guys, scroll. It's not hard.
You're accounting, you do whatever you want.
And no cop attitude with you, man. No cop attitude. I'm like, it's not that hard.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys. I enjoyed this so much. You I don't know, but this These
Please.
podcasts are amazing, and I just love doing them and talking with you guys, and just like it's just a great time. So I thank you guys all for being willing to come and talk to just some random geek on the internet about Star Wars. I had a great time, and I hope you guys too did too. But thank you for joining me, and may the force be with you always.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. Nice meeting all of you guys.
Yes.